Josie's knees hit the frozen ground. She couldn't feel her legs anymore.
"Mister!"
Her voice cracked like breaking ice.
"Mister, please!"
The baby in her arms had stopped crying an hour ago. That terrified her more than the cold. Behind her, Sam dragged Violet through the snow. Rose had fallen twice. They couldn't fall again.
"We found Mama's shoes!"
Josie screamed at the figure in the distance.
"We found her shoes by the creek, but Mama wasn't there. Please, mister, my sister's dying."
The man turned. Josie saw his face change. Then he was running toward them. If you want to know what happens next, subscribe to my channel and follow this story to the end. Comment the city you're watching from so I can see how far this story has traveled. Silas Thornton hadn't run in 5 years. Not since the night he'd sprinted to town for the doctor. Not since he'd raced back home and found Eleanor already cold, Hannah burning with fever in her arms. But he ran now. His boots punched through the snow. His lungs burned. The children grew larger with every stride, and what he saw made his stomach drop. 5 of them. The oldest couldn't be more than 12, and she was on her knees, clutching a bundle to her chest. A baby. Behind her, a boy was half carrying, half dragging 2 smaller girls. The littlest one's lips were blue. Silas reached them and dropped to his knees in front of the oldest girl. "Give her to me." The girl's eyes were wild.
"She won't wake up. She stopped crying and she won't wake up."
"I know. Give her to me now." The girl hesitated. "I'm trying to save her life," Silas said. "Let me help." Something in his voice broke through. The girl released the baby. Silas ripped open his coat and pressed the infant against his bare chest, wrapping the coat around them both. The cold of her skin shocked him. Ice. She was ice. "You," he pointed at the boy. "Get the others inside. That house. Go." The boy didn't move. His face was hard, suspicious. "Now," Silas barked. "You want your sisters to die out here?" That moved him. The boy grabbed the 2 smaller girls and stumbled toward the house. Silas looked at the oldest girl. "Can you walk?"
"I don't know."
"Try." She pushed herself up. Her legs buckled. Silas caught her with his free arm. "Lean on me. We're almost there." They made it to the porch. The boy had already gotten the door open. Warm air rushed out, and the smaller girls stumbled inside like they'd never felt heat before. "Fire," Silas said. "Build it up, all the wood you can find." He carried the baby to the hearth and knelt there, still holding her against his chest. She was so small, so cold. Her breaths came shallow and far apart. "Come on," Silas muttered. "Come on, little one. Don't you quit on me." The oldest girl appeared beside him. "Is she going to die?" Silas didn't answer. He rubbed the baby's back, her arms, her legs, trying to force the blood to move.
"Is she going to die?"
the girl asked again, louder. "Not if I can help it."
"That's not an answer."
Silas looked at her. This girl with ice in her hair and terror in her eyes, who'd carried her baby sister through a blizzard and refused to look away from the truth. "She's alive," he said. "That's what matters right now." The baby stirred. A tiny sound escaped her lips. Then she started to cry. The oldest girl burst into tears.
"Lily! Oh God, Lily!"
"She's fighting," Silas said. "That's good. She needs milk. Warm milk. There's a pail in the kitchen." The girl ran. Silas looked around the room. The boy was feeding wood into the fire, his movements mechanical but efficient. The 2 middle girls huddled together on the floor near the hearth, shaking violently. One of them was crying. The other just stared at nothing. "You," Silas said to the boy. "What's your name?"
"Sam."
Sam, there's blankets in that chest. Get them. Wrap up your sisters. Sam moved without argument this time. He pulled out blankets and carried them to the smaller girls, draping them over their shoulders, tucking them in tight. "What's her name?" Silas asked, nodding toward the crying one. "Violet. She's 7. "And the quiet one?" "Rose. She's 5. "Rose." Silas kept his voice soft. "Rose, can you look at me?" The girl didn't respond. Her eyes stayed fixed on some distant point, her body completely still. "She gets like that when she's scared," Sam said. "Mama calls it her hiding place. Says she goes somewhere in her head where nothing bad can reach her." Silas's chest tightened. He knew that place. He'd lived there for 5 years. The oldest girl came back with warm milk in a cup. She knelt beside Silas and held it to the baby's lips. Lily drank greedily, milk spilling down her chin.
"Good girl," the older girl whispered. "Good girl, Lily. Drink it all."
"What's your name?" Silas asked.
"Josephine. Everyone calls me Josie."
"How old are you, Josie?" 12. 12 years old, and she'd kept 4 children alive through a blizzard. Silas had known grown men who couldn't have done what she did. "You did good," he said, "getting them here." Josie's face crumpled.
"I didn't know where else to go. We walked all night. I just kept walking toward the lights. I thought if we stopped, we'd die."
"You were right." She looked at him with red-rimmed eyes.
"You believe me? About Mama?"
"Tell me what happened." Josie took a shaky breath. The baby had finished the milk and was now sleeping against Silas's chest, her breathing deeper and steadier.
"We were camping by the canyon. Miller's Canyon, I think Mama called it. We've been traveling for 3 weeks, trying to get to California."
"Just you and your mama? No pa?"
"Papa's dead."
Sam's voice cut in from across the room. "Cave-in at the mine, 2 years ago." "I'm sorry." "Don't be. You didn't kill him." Silas studied the boy. 9, maybe 10 years old enough to remember his father, old enough to be angry about losing him. "Go on," Silas said to Josie.
"Mama found a spot that was sheltered from the wind. She said we'd be safe there for the night."
Josie's hands twisted in her lap.
"I woke up before dawn. Something felt wrong. I looked over at Mama's bedroll, and she wasn't there.
Her coat?"
Still there. Her bag. Everything. But she was gone."
"And her shoes?" Josie reached into her pocket and pulled out a worn leather shoe. The sole was coming loose. The laces were still tied.
"I found them by the creek, just sitting there, side by side, like she'd stepped out of them and walked away."
Her voice broke.
"But why would she do that? Why would she leave us? Why would she walk into the snow with no shoes?"
"She wouldn't," Silas said quietly. "Not by choice."
"Then what happened to her?"
Silas didn't answer right away. He was thinking about the territory, about the trails that wound through these mountains, about the rumors he'd heard in town. Women disappearing, travelers who never arrived where they were going. "Josie," he said carefully, "did you see anyone else? Before your mama went missing?" Josie's face changed. Fear flickered across it.
"There was a man."
Silas went still. "Tell me."
"He came to our camp the night before. Just appeared out of nowhere. Said he was passing through. Asked if we needed anything."
"What did he look like?"
"Tall. Thin. He had a scar."
She touched her cheek.
"Here. Running down his face. And he smiled the whole time he talked. But it wasn't a real smile. It made my skin crawl."
Silas's blood turned to ice. Emmett Crane. He'd known Crane for years, seen him around cold water springs, always passing through, never staying long. The man had a reputation. Nothing anyone could prove, but the kind of whispers that followed certain men like shadows. "This man," Silas said, "did he say anything else? Did he touch your mama?"
No, Mama told him to move along. He did, but Josie shuddered. He kept looking back at her, at us, like he was counting us.
Sam spoke up. "I told Mama we should move, find a different spot. She said we were too tired, said it would be fine."
"It's not her fault,"
Josie snapped. "I didn't say it was."
"You're thinking it."
"Stop," Silas's voice cut through their argument. "This isn't anybody's fault, except the man who took her. You understand? The only person to blame is him." Both children fell silent. Silas stood carefully, still holding the sleeping baby. He carried her to Josie and transferred her gently into the girl's arms. "I need you to watch your sisters," he said. "All of them. Can you do that?"
"Where are you going?"
"To find your mama." Sam jumped to his feet.
"I'm coming with you."
"No."
"She's my mama too. I got a right."
"You got a right to stay alive. Your sisters need you here. Josie can watch them."
"And what happens if something goes wrong? What happens if those men come here while I'm gone?"
Silas looked the boy dead in the eyes. "Your sisters need someone to protect them. That's you." Sam's jaw tightened, his hands balled into fists. For a moment, Silas thought he might argue more. But then the boy looked at his sisters, at Violet, still crying quietly, at Rose, still lost in her hiding place, at Lily, sleeping in Josie's arms. "Fine," Sam said. "But if you don't come back, I'm going after her myself." "Fair enough." Silas went to his bedroom and opened the closet. His rifle hung on the wall where it had hung for 5 years, untouched. He pulled it down and checked the chamber. Loaded. He grabbed extra ammunition and stuffed it in his coat pocket. From the drawer, he took his revolver. The weight of it felt wrong in his hand, like holding a piece of his past. When he came back to the main room, the children were watching him. Even Rose had come out of her hiding place, her eyes tracking the guns.
"Mr. Thornton?"
Violet's small voice surprised him. It was the first time she'd spoken. "Yeah?"
"Are you going to kill the bad man?"
Silas looked at her. 7 years old, with big brown eyes that had seen too much. "I'm going to bring your mama home," he said. "Whatever it takes."
"Mama says killing is wrong."
"Your mom is right. But sometimes wrong things have to be done to protect the people we love." Violet considered this.
"Will you protect us?"
"Yes."
"Promise?"
That word again. Silas had sworn off promises after Hannah died. Promises were just debts you couldn't pay. But this little girl was looking at him like he was the only solid thing in a world that had turned to quicksand. "I promise," he said. He moved to the door, then stopped. "Josie?"
"Yes, sir?"
"Lock this behind me. Don't open it for anyone except me. Anyone else comes to that door, you take your sisters to the root cellar and you hide. Understood?"
"Yes, sir."
"There's food in the kitchen, more milk in the icebox. Keep the fire burning."
"I will."
Silas opened the door. The wind had died down, and the snow fell soft and straight now, like white curtains drifting from the sky.
"Mr. Thornton?"
Josie called. He turned.
"Thank you,"
she said.
"for helping us. You didn't have to."
Silas thought about his empty house, his silent meals, the graves behind the barn where wildflowers bloomed every spring over the bodies of his wife and daughter. "Yeah," he said quietly. "I did." He stepped outside and pulled the door shut behind him. A moment later, he heard the lock click. The ride to Miller's Canyon took longer than it should have. The snow had drifted deep in places, and Copper had to pick his way carefully through the worst of it. Silas kept his rifle across his lap, and his eyes moving. The land stretched out white and empty in every direction, beautiful in a way that could kill you. He'd seen it happen before. Travelers who got turned around in weather like this, who walked in circles until the cold took them, found their bodies in the spring perfectly preserved, faces peaceful. He pushed the thought away and focused on the trail. The canyon appeared gradually, a dark gash in the white landscape, red rocks jutting up from the snow like broken teeth. Silas slowed Copper to a walk and listened. Nothing. He dismounted and led the horse forward on foot, following the base of the canyon wall. The children's tracks were long gone, buried under fresh snow, but he knew where the camping spot was. Everyone who traveled through here used the same sheltered hollow. He found it 10 minutes later. The remains of a fire pit, a crumpled blanket, a tin cup on its side, and the shoes. They sat on a flat rock near the creek bed, perfectly placed side by side. Brown leather, worn at the heels, the laces tied in neat bows. Silas crouched beside them, but didn't touch. He scanned the ground around the rock. The snow had covered most of the prints, but in a sheltered spot near the creek, he could make out faint impressions. Bare footprints, small, a woman's. They led deeper into the canyon. He followed. The walls rose higher around him, blocking out the weak winter sun. Shadows pooled in the crevices and alcoves. The temperature dropped. Silas moved slowly, stopping every few yards to listen. The only sounds were his own breathing and the soft crunch of snow under his boots. Then he heard something else. Voices. He froze. They were coming from ahead, around a bend in the canyon, low and rough. 2 men, maybe more. Silas tied Copper to a twisted juniper and continued on foot. He pressed his back against the canyon wall, sliding along it, keeping to the deepest shadows. Around the bend, he stopped. 2 men sat near a small fire, their backs to him. One was tall and lean, wearing a black hat. Even from behind, Silas recognized the way he held himself. Emmett Crane. The other man was shorter, thick through the shoulders, with a tangled beard that reached his chest. Between them, slumped against a boulder, was a woman. Her blue dress was torn and filthy. Her feet were bare, wrapped in bloody rags. Her head hung forward, dark hair hiding her face. But she was breathing. Silas could see the rise and fall of her chest. Alive. Crane was talking, his voice casual, like he was discussing the weather. "She'll bring good money in Santa Fe. Place I know down there. They're always looking for new girls. Pretty thing like this, they'll pay double." "What about the brats?" the bearded man asked. Crane shrugged. "What about 'em? Storm probably took care of that problem for us. If not," he laughed, "wolves gotta eat too." Silas's vision went red. He stepped out from the shadows, rifle raised. "Get away from her." Both men spun around. Crane's hand dropped toward his holster. "Don't." Silas's voice was flat. "Dead. You touch that gun, and I'll scatter your brains across this canyon." Crane's hand stopped. His eyes narrowed, and then that smile spread across his face. The one Josie had described. The one that wasn't really a smile at all. Silas Thornton. Well, isn't this a surprise? No surprise. You took something that doesn't belong to you. Took? Crane spread his hands. I found her, wandering in the snow, half frozen. We saved her life. After you drugged her and dragged her out here. After you left her children to die. Crane's smile flickered. Those brats are alive? All 5 of them, sitting in my kitchen right now, waiting for their mama. Something ugly crossed Crane's face. That's unfortunate. For you, maybe. The bearded man shifted his weight. Silas swung the rifle toward him.
Don't get ideas, friend. I've got 6 rounds. That's 3 for each of you.
Easy now, Crane held up his hands. No need for anyone to get hurt. Let's talk about this like civilized men. Civilized? Silas spat the word. You kidnap women. You sell them. You leave children to freeze to death. Nothing civilized about you. It's just business, supply and demand. I don't make the rules. No, you just profit from them. Crane's eyes darted to the woman, then back to Silas. Here's what I think. I think you're one man with one rifle. I think you can't watch both of us forever. And I think sooner or later you're going to make a mistake. You're welcome to test that theory. Maybe I will. They stared at each other across the fire. The flames crackled and popped. The woman stirred, a soft moan escaping her lips. Emmeline, Silas said, not taking his eyes off Crane. Emmeline, can you hear me? The woman's head lifted slowly. Her eyes were glassy, unfocused, but they found Silas's face. Who? Her voice was slurred, broken. Who are you? My name's Silas. Your children sent me. They're safe. All of them. Something flickered in her eyes, life returning. My babies, she whispered. My babies are alive? Yes, ma'am, and they're waiting for you. Tears spilled down her cheeks. She tried to stand, but her legs buckled. She caught herself against the boulder, gasping. Easy, Silas said. Don't try to move yet. Crane chuckled. Touching, really, a regular knight in shining armor. He tilted his head. But here's the thing, Thornton. You're not going to shoot me. You're not the type. I've seen your kind before. All bark, no bite. You don't know anything about me. I know you've been hiding on that ranch for 5 years. I know you don't come to town, don't talk to anyone, don't do anything except feel sorry for yourself. I know you're broken. Silas's finger tightened on the trigger.
That's right, Crane said softly. Get angry. Let that rage build up. But you won't pull that trigger. Men like you never do.
You're wrong. Prove it. The bearded man moved. Silas saw it from the corner of his eye. The man diving for his gun in the dirt. Silas swung the rifle and fired. The shot echoed off the canyon walls like thunder. The bearded man screamed, clutching his shoulder, blood pouring between his fingers. Crane lunged. He was fast, faster than Silas expected. His hand found the knife at his belt and came up in a blur of steel. Silas pulled the trigger again. The bullet caught Crane in the chest. He staggered backward, eyes wide with shock. The knife slipped from his fingers. He looked down at the blood spreading across his shirt, then back up at Silas. You, his voice gurgled. You shot me. I told you. You don't know anything about me. Crane fell to his knees, then forward, face first into the snow. He didn't move again. Silas kept the rifle trained on the bearded man. You want to join him? No. The man's voice was high with pain and fear. No, please. I give up. I surrender. Throw your gun away. Use your good arm. The man obeyed, tossing his revolver into the snow. Silas moved to the woman. She was staring at Crane's body, her face pale. Don't look at him, Silas said gently. Look at me. Her eyes shifted to his face. Can you walk? I don't know. We're going to find out. Put your arm around my neck. She did. Silas lifted her, taking most of her weight. Her body trembled against his.
My babies, she kept saying. Take me to my babies.
I will, I promise. He half carried her toward Copper, leaving the bearded man groaning in the snow. The horse snorted and stamped, but held steady as Silas lifted the woman onto its back. Hold the saddle horn. Don't let go. She gripped it with white-knuckled hands. Silas mounted up behind her, one arm wrapped around her waist to keep her steady. He turned the horse toward home. Wait, the woman said. Her voice was clearer now.
The other one. He'll come after us.
He might, if he survives.
He said, she shuddered. He said there are others. A whole network of them. Trading women along the trails.
Silas's jaw tightened. I know.
They'll know it was you. They'll come for you.
Let them. The woman twisted to look at his face. Even through the fog of whatever drug they'd given her, he could see intelligence in her eyes. Strength.
Why are you doing this? She asked. You don't know me. You don't owe me anything.
Silas thought about the question, about his empty house and his silent years, about Hannah's grave and Eleanor's ghost, about 5 children huddled around his fire, waiting for a miracle. Your daughter Josie, he said. She carried your baby through a blizzard, walked all night in the cold, wouldn't stop, wouldn't give up. She found my ranch and begged me for help. He paused. A girl like that? She didn't come from nowhere. Someone raised her right. Someone taught her to fight. The woman started to cry. I tried so hard to keep them safe. You did, and now I'm going to get you home to them. They rode in silence after that. The sun dipped toward the horizon, painting the snow in shades of pink and gold. The woman leaned against Silas's chest, her breathing slow and steady. By the time the ranch came into view, the sky was turning purple. Lamplight glowed in the window, warm and bright against the gathering darkness. Silas felt something loosen in his chest, a knot he'd been carrying for 5 years. There it is, he said. Home. The woman lifted her head. That's your ranch? Yes, ma'am. It's beautiful. Silas looked at the weathered house, the old barn, the fence posts he'd been meaning to fix for years. Beautiful wasn't the word he would have chosen. But looking at it now, through her eyes, he thought maybe he understood. They reached the porch, and Silas dismounted carefully. He helped the woman down, her legs still unsteady. Josie, he called, open the door. Silence. Then the lock clicked. The door swung open, and Josie stood there, her face pale in the lamplight. She saw her mother. The sound she made wasn't a scream. It was something deeper than that, something torn from the very center of her. Mama! She flew across the porch and threw herself into her mother's arms. They both went down, collapsing in a heap on the wooden boards, sobbing, clutching each other. Sam came next, running out the door with Violet right behind him. They piled onto the embrace, crying, calling for their mama. Rose appeared in the doorway, holding baby Lily in her arms. She stood frozen, watching. Mama, she whispered. The woman looked up, tears streaming down her face. Rose, baby, come here. Rose walked forward slowly, like she was afraid it wasn't real. She knelt beside her mother and sisters, and the woman pulled her close, Lily and all. Silas stepped back. He watched them there on his porch, this family that had found each other again against all odds. 5 children and their mother, tangled together, crying and laughing, and holding on like the world depended on it. Maybe it did. The woman looked up at him over her children's heads. Her eyes met his. Thank you, she said. I don't even know how to... Don't, Silas shook his head. Just take care of your children. That's thanks enough." He turned and walked toward the barn, leading Copper by the reins. Behind him, he could hear them talking, crying, all the sounds of a family reunited. The barn was cold and dark. Silas unsaddled the horse and brushed him down, going through the motions without thinking. His hands shook slightly. Adrenaline still, or something else. He thought about Crane's face when the bullet hit. The surprise in his eyes. Men like you never do. Silas looked down at his hands. They didn't feel like his anymore. They felt like they belonged to someone he used to be. Someone who died alongside Eleanor and Hannah, buried in that frozen ground behind the barn. But tonight, those hands had saved a woman, had brought a mother back to her children. Maybe that was worth something. He finished with the horse and walked back toward the house. Through the window, he could see them inside now, gathered around the fire. The woman sat on the couch, children pressed against her on all sides. Josie was talking, gesturing, probably telling the story of their journey through the blizzard. Silas stopped on the porch. He wasn't sure if he should go in. This was their moment, their family. He was just a stranger who'd stumbled into their lives. The door opened. Sam stood there, backlit by the fire. "You coming in or not?" Silas blinked.
I didn't want to intrude. Mama wants to thank you proper. Says it ain't right, you standing out here in the cold while we're warm inside.
Your mama needs rest, not company.
Mama says you're not company. Sam's voice softened just slightly. She says you're the reason we still have a mama at all. Silas looked at the boy, at the hardness in his eyes that was starting to crack, at the child underneath, scared and grateful and trying so hard to be strong. "All right," Silas said. "I'll come in." He stepped through the door into the warmth. The warmth hit Silas like a wall. After hours in the cold, the heat from the fire felt almost painful on his skin. The woman, Emmeline, looked up at him from the couch. Her children were still pressed against her, reluctant to let go even for a moment. But her eyes found his across the room.
"Mr. Thornton, please, sit."
"I'm fine standing, ma'am."
"You saved my life. The least I can do is offer you a chair."
Silas hesitated. Then he pulled a wooden chair from the table and sat down a few feet from the couch. Not too close, not too far. Josie was watching him with those sharp eyes of hers.
"You found her in the canyon."
"Yes."
"And the men who took her?"
Silas glanced at the younger children. Violet had her face buried in her mother's shoulder. Rose sat perfectly still, her small hand gripping her mother's dress like she'd never let go. Baby Lily was asleep in Emmeline's lap. "We can talk about that later," he said.
"I want to know now."
"Josie," Emmeline's voice was soft but firm.
"Later."
The girl's jaw tightened, but she nodded. Sam was standing by the fire, arms crossed over his chest. He hadn't joined the pile on the couch. Hadn't touched his mother since that first embrace on the porch. "You hungry, Mr. Thornton?" he asked. "I could eat." "I'll make something." Sam moved toward the kitchen, his movements stiff and controlled. Emmeline watched him go, pain flickering across her face.
"He blames himself," she said quietly, "for not protecting us. He's 9 years old. He's been trying to be the man of the house since his father died. It's too much weight for a boy to carry."
Silas knew something about carrying weight, about the way it bent your spine until you forgot how to stand straight. "He'll be all right," he said. "Give him time." Emmeline studied his face. Even exhausted, even drugged, there was something piercing about her gaze, like she could see past the surface to whatever lay beneath. You lost someone, she said. It wasn't a question. Silas stiffened. Ma'am? The way you looked at my children when you first saw them. The way you hesitated before touching Lily. You've lost someone. A child. The words hit him like a fist to the chest. He should have deflected, changed the subject. But something about this woman made lies feel impossible. My daughter, he said. Hannah. She was 8. How long ago? 5 years.
Emmeline's eyes softened.
I'm sorry.
It was a long time ago.
No, it wasn't. Not for something like that.
Silas didn't know what to say. No one had talked to him about Hannah in years. The people in town had stopped mentioning her name, stopped offering condolences. They'd let him disappear into his grief, and he'd been grateful for it. But this woman looked at him like she understood, like she knew exactly what it meant to lose a piece of yourself and keep living anyway.
Mama?
Violet's small voice broke the silence.
I'm hungry too.
I know, baby. Sam's making food.
Will we stay here tonight?
Emmeline looked at Silas. The question hung in the air between them. You'll stay as long as you need, Silas said. All of you. Violet lifted her head from her mother's shoulder. Her cheeks were streaked with dried tears, but her eyes were curious now.
Do you have any animals?
She asked. A few. Horses, some cattle. A barn cat who thinks she owns the place. What's the cat's name? Don't have one. She just showed up last winter and decided to stay. Everything should have a name. Violet's voice was serious, like this was an important matter. Can I name her? Silas felt something crack in his chest, a tiny fissure in the wall he'd built around himself. Sure, he said. You can name her. Violet smiled. It was a small thing, trembling at the edges, but it was real. The first smile he'd seen from any of them. Sam came back from the kitchen with a plate of bread and cheese. He handed it to his mother first, then made another trip for the rest of them. Silas took his portion and ate mechanically, not tasting anything. The fire crackled. The wind had picked up again outside, rattling the windows. But inside, the house felt different than it had that morning. Fuller. Warmer. Mr. Thornton, Emmeline's voice pulled him back. I need to know what happened. In the canyon. Silas set down his plate. You sure you want to hear it tonight? I need to know what we're dealing with, if there's danger coming. She was right. He owed her the truth. There were 2 of them, he said. The one with the scar, Emmett Crane, and another man, bigger, had a beard. I remember them. Crane was the one who... She trailed off, her hand moving unconsciously to her throat. He's dead. The words landed like stones. The children went still. You killed him? Josie asked. Yes. Good. The word came out hard, fierce. I'm glad he's dead. Josie, Emmeline's voice held a warning. He was going to sell you, Mama. He was going to sell you like cattle and let us freeze to death. He deserved worse than dying. Silas looked at this 12-year-old girl with fire in her eyes and hatred in her voice. And he saw himself. The way he'd felt after Eleanor died. The rage that had nowhere to go. Maybe he did, Silas said quietly. But being glad about killing isn't something to hold on to. It'll poison you if you let it. Josie's eyes met his. For a moment, she looked like she wanted to argue. Then something shifted in her face. Did it poison you? The question cut deeper than she knew. I'm working on it, Silas said. Emmeline reached out and took Josie's hand. What about the other man, the one with the beard? Shot him in the shoulder. Left him in the canyon.
So he's alive.
Maybe. Depends on whether he can stop the bleeding. Whether the cold gets him.
And if he lives?
Silas met her eyes. Then he might come looking for revenge. Or he might run. Hard to say.
Crane mentioned others. A network.
I know. I've heard rumors. Women disappearing along the trails. Never could prove anything. Silas leaned forward. But right now, tonight, you're safe. That's what matters.
And tomorrow?
Tomorrow we figure out the rest. Emmeline nodded slowly. She looked exhausted, the brief burst of energy fading. Her eyes were drooping, her body sagging against the couch. You need sleep, Silas said. All of you.
I don't want to sleep.
Violet's voice was small.
What if I wake up and Mama's gone again?
Emmeline pulled her daughter close.
I'm not going anywhere, baby. I promise. You promised before. You said we'd be safe at the camp.
The words were innocent, but they landed like a blow. Emmeline flinched. Violet. Josie's voice was sharp. That's not fair.
I'm not trying to be mean. I just...
Violet started crying again, her small body shaking.
I was so scared. I thought you were dead. I thought we were all going to die.
Emmeline gathered her daughter against her chest, rocking her gently.
I know, baby. I know. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry I scared you.
Silas stood abruptly. The room felt too small, too full of pain that wasn't his to witness. I'll make up the beds, he said. There's a room down the hall. It was... He stopped, swallowed. It's got a big bed. Should fit all of you if you squeeze. Emmeline looked up at him, understanding in her eyes.
Thank you.
He nodded and walked down the hallway. The door at the end had been closed for 5 years. He hadn't been able to bring himself to open it. Hadn't been able to face what was inside. His hand trembled as he reached for the knob. The room was exactly as Eleanor had left it. The quilt she'd made spread across the bed. The small rocking chair in the corner, where she'd nursed Hannah as a baby. The curtains with the blue flowers that she'd sewn herself. Dust covered everything. The air smelled stale, trapped. Silas forced himself to move. He stripped the old sheets and found fresh ones in the closet. He made the bed with mechanical precision, tucking the corners tight the way Eleanor had taught him. When he finished, he stood in the doorway and looked at the room. It didn't feel like a tomb anymore. It felt like what it was. A bedroom. A place for a family to sleep.
Mr.
Thornton? He turned. Josie stood in the hallway, watching him. Room's ready, he said.
This was your wife's room, wasn't it?
The girl was too perceptive by half. How'd you know?
The way you looked when you said there was a room. Like it hurt to even think about it.
She paused.
You don't have to give it to us. We can sleep by the fire.
It's fine.
It's not fine. I can see it's not fine.
Silas sighed. Your mama needs a real bed. Your sisters need somewhere warm and safe. This room's been empty too long anyway. Maybe it's time it had people in it again. Josie studied him for a long moment. Then she did something he didn't expect. She stepped forward and hugged him. It was quick, fierce, over almost before it started. But the warmth of it lingered.
Thank you,
she said.
For everything.
Then she turned and walked back to the main room, leaving Silas standing alone in the hallway, with his heart cracking open, inch by inch. Getting everyone to bed took longer than Silas expected. Violet refused to let go of her mother's hand. Rose had retreated back into her silence, moving like a sleepwalker. Baby Lily woke up crying and had to be soothed with more warm milk. Sam stood apart from all of it, watching from the doorway, with that hard expression on his face. "You going to sleep?" Silas asked him. "Someone should keep watch." "That's my job. It's my family." Silas recognized the stubbornness in the boy's jaw. The same stubbornness he'd had at that age. The same need to prove himself. "All right," he said. "We'll split it. You take the first half of the night, I'll take the second. Deal?" Sam's eyes widened slightly. He'd expected an argument, not agreement. "Deal," he said. Silas showed him where the rifle hung over the fireplace. "You know how to use this?" "Papa taught me." "Good. You see or hear anything strange, you come get me. Don't try to be a hero. Understand?"
"Yes, sir."
And Sam? Yeah? Your mama's proud of you, even if she doesn't say it. What you did out there, helping your sisters through the storm, that took guts. Something flickered in the boy's face. Pride, maybe, or the need to cry that he was holding back with everything he had. "I just did what had to be done," he said. "That's what men do." Sam blinked. Silas saw the words land, saw them take root. "Get some rest when you're tired," Silas said. "Don't push yourself too hard." He walked to his own room and closed the door. For a long time, he just sat on the edge of his bed, listening to the sounds of the house settling around him. Footsteps in the hallway, murmured voices, a child's cough. It had been so long since there'd been life in these walls. So long since he'd heard anything but his own breathing and the wind. He should have felt invaded, should have wanted his solitude back. Instead, he felt something he barely recognized. Hope. Silas woke before dawn. The house was quiet, but it was a different kind of quiet than he was used to. A living quiet, full of sleeping breaths and small movements. He dressed quickly and walked to the main room. Sam was asleep in the chair by the fire, the rifle across his lap. The boy had made it most of the night. Silas gently lifted the rifle and set it back on its hooks. He covered Sam with a blanket, then went to the kitchen to start coffee. The sun was just beginning to lighten the sky when he heard footsteps behind him. Emmeline stood in the doorway. She'd washed her face and combed her hair, but the bruises stood out dark against her pale skin. She moved stiffly, pain evident in every step. "You should be resting," Silas said. "I've rested enough. 5 years of running, and I've never slept in a real bed. Couldn't stop thinking about how soft it was." She lowered herself into a chair at the table, wincing. "Coffee?" Silas asked. "Please." He poured 2 cups and set one in front of her. She wrapped her hands around it like it was something precious. "Mr. Thornton." "Silas. If we're going to be living under the same roof, might as well use first names." A faint smile touched her lips. "Silas, I want you to know that we won't impose on you longer than necessary. As soon as I'm strong enough to travel, we'll move on." "Move on where?" "California, I suppose. That was the plan." "California's a long way. Winter's just getting started. You wouldn't make it through the mountains." "Then somewhere else. There must be work in the nearest town." "Coldwater Springs? Population 200, and half of them can barely feed themselves." Silas shook his head. "You wouldn't find work. Not with 5 children to care for." Emmeline's jaw tightened. "Then what do you suggest?" "Stay here." The words came out before he could stop them. Emmeline stared at him. "Stay here," he repeated, more certain now. "Through the winter, at least. This ranch is too big for one man anyway. I could use the help. I can't pay you. Did I ask for payment?" "No, but—" She set down her cup. "Why would you do this? You don't know us.
You don't owe us anything." It was the same question she'd asked in the canyon. Silas still didn't have a good answer. "Maybe I'm tired of being alone," he said finally. "Maybe I'm tired of rattling around this empty house, talking to no one but my horse. Maybe your kids remind me of what it felt like to have a family." He met her eyes. "Or maybe I just want to do something good for once. Something that matters." Emmeline was quiet for a long moment. Her fingers traced the rim of her coffee cup. "My husband died 2 years ago," she said. "Cave-in at the mine where he worked. They never even found his body." "I'm sorry." "After he died, his brother tried to claim us. Said a widow with 5 children needed a man to take care of her. Said he'd be doing me a favor." Her voice hardened. What he really wanted was the land. Thomas had a small claim, enough to build on. Victor wanted it for himself. "Victor?" "Victor Holloway, my brother-in-law." She looked up at Silas. "He's the reason we ran. He was going to force me to marry him. Take the children. Take everything. So I packed what I could carry, and we left in the middle of the night." Silas felt a cold anger building in his chest. "He hurt you?" "He tried. I hit him with a skillet and ran." A ghost of a smile crossed her face. "Broke his nose, I think. He wasn't too happy about that." "Good for you." "The problem is, he's not the type to give up. He's been following us. We'd hear about a man asking questions in the towns behind us. Tall, red hair, mean eyes. That's Victor." "You think he's still looking?" "I know he is. Victor doesn't like losing, and he really doesn't like being made a fool of." She took a breath. "That's why I can't stay here, Silas. It's not just Crane's people I have to worry about. It's Victor, too. If he finds us here, he'll cause trouble. For me and for you." Silas leaned back in his chair. "Let me worry about that." "You don't understand. Victor's dangerous. He has friends, connections." "So do I." "Silas." "Emmeline." He leaned forward, holding her gaze. "I spent 5 years hiding from the world, hiding from my own grief, hiding from everything that might make me feel something again. Your children knocked on my door yesterday, and for the first time since my wife died, I felt like my life had a purpose." He paused. "I'm not letting anyone take that away. Not Crane's men, not your brother-in-law, not anyone." Emmeline's eyes glistened. She blinked rapidly, looking away. "You barely know us," she whispered. "I know enough. I know Josie would walk through fire for her siblings. I know Sam's trying so hard to be strong that he's forgotten how to be a kid. I know Violet's scared, but fighting it. I know Rose goes somewhere far away when things get too hard. And I know Lily's alive because her sisters refused to give up." He reached across the table and touched her hand. "That tells me everything I need to know about the woman who raised them." A tear spilled down Emmeline's cheek. She didn't wipe it away. "I don't know how to thank you," she said. "You don't have to. Just stay. Give yourself time to heal. Give your children time to feel safe. We can figure out the rest later." Emmeline looked at him for a long moment. Then, slowly, she nodded. "All right," she said. "We'll stay. For now." "For now," Silas agreed. But something in his chest said it would be longer than that. Something said it might be forever. The children woke gradually over the next hour. Violet came first, padding into the kitchen in bare feet, her hair a tangled mess. She climbed into a chair next to her mother and leaned against her, still half asleep. Rose followed, silent as always, her eyes tracking around the room before settling on Silas.
She watched him with an intensity that was unsettling in a 5-year-old. "Good morning, Rose," Silas said. She didn't answer, just kept watching. "She doesn't talk much," Violet said. "Not since Papa died. Mama says she'll come back when she's ready." "She talked before?" "All the time. She used to tell stories. Made-up ones about princesses and dragons and magic horses. She was really good at it."
Silas looked at the small, silent girl. Somewhere inside that stillness was a child who told stories about magic horses. He wondered if that child would ever come back. Josie appeared next, carrying Lily on her hip. The baby was awake and fussy, gnawing on her fist.
"She's hungry," Josie said. "Is there more milk?"
"In the icebox. I'll warm some." Silas busied himself with the milk while Josie settled Lily into a makeshift high chair. The domesticity of it felt strange, foreign, like wearing clothes that didn't quite fit. Sam was the last to wake. He stumbled in from the main room, rubbing his eyes, and froze when he saw everyone gathered in the kitchen. "I fell asleep," he said. His voice was thick with guilt. "I was supposed to keep watch." "You kept watch for most of the night," Silas said. "I took over. Nothing happened." "You should have woken me." "You needed sleep." Sam's jaw tightened, but he didn't argue. He dropped into a chair and stared at the table, refusing to look at anyone. Emmeline reached over and squeezed his hand.
"Thank you for watching over us, Sam."
"I didn't do anything. I fell asleep." "You stayed up half the night to protect your family. That means something." Sam pulled his hand away. "It doesn't mean anything if I can't actually protect you." The words hung in the air. Silas saw the pain flash across Emmeline's face. "Sam," Silas said quietly, "can I talk to you? Outside?" The boy looked up, suspicious.
"Why?" "Because I've got chores to do, and I could use an extra pair of hands. That a problem?"
Sam glanced at his mother. She nodded slightly. "Fine," he said. "Let's go." They walked out into the cold morning air. The sun was up now, weak and pale, casting long shadows across the snow. Silas led the way to the barn, where Copper was waiting for his morning feed. "You know how to take care of horses?" Silas asked.
"Some. Papa had a mule."
"Close enough. Grab that bucket. Fill it from the barrel in the corner." They worked in silence for a few minutes. Sam moved efficiently, following Silas's instructions without complaint. The boy was a hard worker. That was clear. "You want to tell me what's eating at you?" Silas asked finally. Sam's shoulders stiffened. "Nothing's eating at me." "Son, I've been angry at the world for 5 years. I know what it looks like." "I'm not angry." "Then what are you?" Sam didn't answer. He kept his back to Silas, brushing Copper with more force than necessary. "I couldn't stop them," he said finally. His voice was barely above a whisper. "The men who took Mama. I heard them come into the camp. I pretended to be asleep because I was scared. And they took her, and I didn't do anything." Silas felt his heart crack. "Sam, look at me." The boy turned slowly. His eyes were red, his jaw trembling with the effort of holding back tears. "You're 9 years old," Silas said. "Those men were grown, armed. If you'd tried to stop them, they would have killed you. And then who would have gotten your sisters to safety? Who would have kept Lily alive through the storm?" "Josie did that, not me." "Josie couldn't have done it alone. She needed help. She needed you." "She's stronger than me. She's always been stronger." "That's not true, and you know it." Silas stepped closer. "You want to know what I saw yesterday? I saw a boy half carrying his sisters through a blizzard. I saw a boy who stayed up all night to protect his family.
I saw a boy who's so busy being hard on himself that he can't see how much he's already done. Sam's control broke. Tears spilled down his cheeks, and his body shook with sobs he'd been holding back for God knew how long. Silas did something he hadn't done in 5 years. He pulled the boy into his arms and held him. "It's okay," he said. "It's okay to be scared. It's okay to cry. It doesn't make you weak. It makes you human." Sam clung to him, crying like the child he was underneath all that hardness. Silas held him and let him cry, remembering what it felt like to be young and overwhelmed and trying so hard to be strong. When the sobs finally slowed, Sam pulled back. He wiped his face with his sleeve, embarrassed. "Sorry," he muttered. "Don't be. Everyone needs to let it out sometimes." "Do you? Let it out?" Silas thought about that. About the years of silence, the grief he'd buried so deep he'd forgotten it was there. "Not as much as I should," he admitted, "but I'm working on it." Sam nodded slowly. He looked different somehow. Lighter, like some of the weight he'd been carrying had shifted. "Mr. Thornton?" "Silas." "Silas." The boy tested the name. "Thank you. For saving Mama. For letting us stay." "You're welcome." "I'm going to learn how to protect them. Really protect them. Will you teach me?" Silas looked at this boy who'd been forced to grow up too fast, who carried burdens no child should have to carry. "Yeah," he said. "I'll teach you." They finished the morning chores together, then walked back to the house. The smell of cooking greeted them at the door. Emmeline was at the stove, moving slowly but steadily, flipping something in a pan. "Mama, you should be resting," Josie said from the table. "I've been resting. I need to do something useful." She looked up as Silas and Sam came in. "I found some eggs. Hope you don't mind." "Mind? I can't remember the last time someone cooked for me." Emmeline smiled. It transformed her face, pushing back the bruises and the exhaustion. For a moment, Silas saw the woman she must have been before all this, before the grief and the fear and the running. She was beautiful. The thought startled him. He pushed it away, focusing on practical things. "I need to ride into town today," he said. "Let the sheriff know what happened. Stock up on supplies." Emmeline's smile faded. "Is that safe? If Crane's people are going to come, they'll come whether I go to town or not. Better to get ahead of it. Let the law know what we're dealing with." "Can I come?" Violet asked eagerly. "I want to see the town." "Not today. I need you here, helping your mama." Violet's face fell, but she nodded. "I'll stay too," Sam said. "Keep watch." Silas met the boy's eyes and nodded. "Good man." After breakfast, Silas saddled Copper and rode toward Coldwater Springs. The snow had stopped falling, and the sky was clear and cold. His breath plumed white in the air. The ride gave him time to think. About Emmeline, about her children, about the danger that might be coming. He'd killed Emmett Crane, shot him dead without hesitation. And he didn't regret it. But Crane wasn't the only threat. There was the bearded man, if he'd survived. There was the network Crane had mentioned. And there was Victor Holloway, the brother-in-law who'd driven Emmeline to run. Silas had made a lot of enemies in one day, more than he'd made in the past 5 years combined. Funny thing was, he didn't care. For the first time since Eleanor died, he had something worth fighting for. Coldwater Springs appeared on the horizon, a cluster of buildings huddled against the white landscape. Silas rode down the main street, past the general store and the saloon, and the tiny church with its crooked steeple. The sheriff's office was at the end of the street, a squat wooden building with bars on the windows. Silas tied Copper to the post outside and went in. Sheriff Tom Barkley sat behind his desk, a coffee cup in one hand and a newspaper in the other. He looked up when Silas entered, and his eyebrows rose. "Silas Thornton, haven't seen you in, what, 6 months?" "About that." "What brings you to town?" Silas told him. All of it. The children, Emmeline, Crane and the bearded man, the canyon. Barkley listened without interrupting. When Silas finished, the sheriff set down his coffee and leaned back in his chair. "Emmett Crane," he said slowly. "I've been hearing that name for years. Never could pin anything on him." "You won't have to worry about that anymore." "No, I suppose not." Barkley studied him. "You killed him." "I did."
In cold blood? In defense of an innocent woman he was planning to sell into slavery.
Barkley nodded slowly. "That's what I'll put in the report. Self-defense. Defense of another. Clean and simple." "And the other man, the one with the beard?" "If he's still alive, he'll probably run. Men like that don't stick around when things go bad. They find easier pickings somewhere else."
"And if he doesn't run?"
Barkley met his eyes. "Then you let me know, and we'll deal with it. Together." Silas nodded.
"There's something else. The woman, Emmeline Holloway. She's got a brother-in-law who's been following her. Name of Victor Holloway. Big man, red hair. He's been tracking her for months."
"What's he want?"
"Her land, her children, her."
Silas's voice hardened. He tried to force her to marry him. She ran. Barkley's face darkened. "I've met men like that. They don't give up easy."
"No, they don't."
"If he shows up here, I'll have a talk with him.
Make sure he knows this town doesn't take kindly to that sort of behavior."
"I appreciate it, Tom." Barkley stood and extended his hand. Silas shook it. "It's good to see you, Silas. Really. We've all been worried about you. Holed up on that ranch by yourself. Folks were starting to think you'd never come back to the land of the living. Maybe I'm starting to. That woman and her kids? Maybe." Barkley smiled. "Well, whatever the reason, I'm glad. You deserve some happiness. Lord knows you've earned it." Silas didn't know about deserving, but he was starting to want it. And that felt like enough. He bought supplies at the general store. Extra food, blankets, a small doll with a porcelain face and a blue dress, for reasons he didn't examine too closely. When he got back to the ranch, the sun was setting. Golden light spilled across the snow, turning the world to fire. Smoke curled from the chimney of his house, and through the window he could see figures moving inside.
Silas stopped his horse and just looked for a moment. His house, his home, full of people again.
It felt like waking up from a long, dark dream. He urged Copper forward and rode toward the light. The days that followed settled into a rhythm that surprised Silas with its ease. Morning started early. He'd wake before dawn, build up the fire, and start coffee. By the time the sun crept over the horizon, Emmeline would be in the kitchen, moving a little stronger each day. They'd work side by side without speaking much, the silence comfortable between them. The children filled the house with noise and chaos and life. Violet had named the barn cat Snowball, despite the cat being orange, and spent hours trying to coax her into the house. Rose remained quiet, but Silas noticed she'd started following him around the ranch, watching everything he did with those solemn eyes. Sam threw himself into learning, helping with chores, asking questions about the horses, the cattle, the land.
And Josie, always Josie, moved through the house like a second mother, keeping her siblings in line, making sure everyone was fed and warm
and accounted for. Baby Lily had recovered completely. Her cheeks were pink now, her eyes bright. She'd started crawling, getting into everything she could reach, and her laughter rang through the rooms like bells. It had been 8 days since Silas had brought Emmeline home from the canyon. 8 days of healing. 8 days of something that felt almost like family. He should have known it couldn't last. The trouble came on a Tuesday. Silas was in the barn with Sam, teaching him how to check a horse's hooves for stones, when Josie came running across the yard.
"Someone's coming!"
Silas straightened immediately. "How many?"
"Just one. A man on horseback, coming up the main road."
"Get inside. Tell your mama. Lock the doors." Josie didn't argue. She turned and ran back toward the house. "Stay here," Silas told Sam.
"But—"
"Stay here."
He grabbed his rifle from where it hung on the barn wall and walked toward the front of the property. His heart was steady, his hands calm. Whatever was coming, he'd face it. The rider appeared through the trees a moment later. A big man on a black horse, sitting tall in the saddle. Red hair showed beneath his hat. Even from a distance, Silas could see the meanness in his eyes. Victor Holloway. The man reined in his horse about 20 feet from where Silas stood. He looked at the ranch, at the house, at the smoke curling from the chimney. A slow smile spread across his face. "Well now," he said. "Found her at last." "You're on private property." Silas kept his voice flat. "State your business or move on." Victor's smile didn't waver. "My business is with my sister-in-law, Emmeline Holloway. I know she's here. I've been tracking her for 3 months. Don't know anyone by that name." "Don't you?" Victor swung down from his horse, landing heavy in the snow.
He was bigger than Silas had expected. Taller, broader through the shoulders.
"See, I think you do. I think she's in that house right now, hiding behind your skirts. And I think you're going to step aside and let me collect what's mine."
"Nothing here belongs to you."
"Emmeline does. Her children do. Her husband was my brother. Family takes care of family."
"From what I hear, your idea of taking care involves fists and threats." Victor's smile flickered.
"She told you that, did she? Told you I was some kind of monster?"
He shook his head.
"Emmeline's always been dramatic. All I wanted was to give her and those kids a home. A stable life. Instead, she runs off in the middle of the night, drags those children across half the country, nearly gets them killed."
His voice hardened.
"That's not a mother's love. That's madness."
"Seems to me a woman who runs that far has a good reason."
"Seems to me it's none of your concern."
"You made it my concern when you rode onto my land."
The two men stared at each other. The wind picked up, sending snow swirling between them.
"I'm going to see her," Victor said. "One way or another. You can step aside easy, or you can make this hard. Your choice." Silas raised the rifle. "Made my choice." Victor's eyes dropped to the gun, then back to Silas's face. For a long moment, nothing moved. Then Victor laughed, a low, ugly sound. "You think that scares me? You think I haven't had guns pointed at me before?" He took a step forward. "I've killed men, friend. Killed them with my bare hands. You're just some broken-down rancher playing hero. You don't have the stomach for what comes next." "You want to test that theory?" Another step. Victor was close now. Close enough that Silas could see the broken blood vessels in his nose, the yellowing of old bruises on his knuckles. "I'm going to walk past you," Victor said softly. "I'm going to go into that house. I'm going to take Emmeline and those children,
And there's not a damn thing you can do to stop me."
Silas pulled the hammer back. The click echoed in the cold air. "One more step," he said, "and I put a bullet in your chest. I've already killed one man this week. Won't lose sleep over another. Something shifted in Victor's eyes. A flicker of doubt. You're bluffing. Try me. They stood frozen, balanced on the edge of violence. Silas's finger rested on the trigger. His breathing was slow and steady. He meant every word, and Victor could see it. The front door of the house opened. "Victor!" Emmeline's voice cut through the tension like a blade. She stood on the porch, pale but steady, her chin lifted in defiance. "Emma!" Victor's face softened into something that might have looked like affection, if you didn't know better. "There you are. I've been so worried about you." "No, you haven't. You've been hunting me." "Hunting?" He pressed a hand to his chest in mock offense. "I've been trying to bring you home. You and the children. Where you belong." "We don't belong with you. We never did." "Thomas would have wanted—" "Don't!" Emmeline's voice cracked like a whip. "Don't you dare speak his name. Thomas knew what you were. He warned me about you before he died. He said if anything ever happened to him, I should take the children and run as far as I could." Her eyes blazed. "So that's what I did." Victor's mask slipped. The softness vanished, replaced by something cold and hard. Thomas was weak. He never understood what it took to build something in this world. He would have lost that land within a year if the mine hadn't killed him first. "That land was ours. Mine and my children's." "That land is in my name now. Signed over legal and proper. You've got nothing, Emma. No home, no money, no future." He spread his hands. "All you've got is me." "She's got me." Silas's voice was quiet, but it carried. Victor turned to look at him. "You?" Victor laughed. "What are you going to do? Marry her? Take on 5 children that aren't yours? Spend the rest of your life looking over your shoulder, waiting for me to come back? If that's what it takes." Victor's laughter died. He looked at Silas, really looked at him, and something changed in his expression. "You're serious. Dead serious. You don't know what you're getting into, friend. This woman is trouble. She's standing right here," Emmeline said sharply, "and I can speak for myself." She walked down the porch steps, her movements stiff but determined. She crossed the yard and stopped beside Silas, close enough that their shoulders almost touched. "Go home, Victor," she said. "There's nothing for you here. Those children are my blood. Those children are mine, and I'll die before I let you anywhere near them." Victor's face twisted. The mask was completely gone now, replaced by the ugliness underneath. "You think this is over?" His voice was low, dangerous. "You think you can run to the middle of nowhere and hide behind some cowboy, and that makes you safe?" He jabbed a finger at her. "I own you, Emmeline. I own those kids, and I will have what's mine." "Get off my land," Silas's voice was ice. "Now." "Or what? You'll shoot me? In front of witnesses?" Victor gestured toward the house, where 5 small faces were pressed against the window. "In front of those children?" Silas felt Emmeline stiffen beside him. He knew what Victor was doing, using the children as a shield, daring Silas to act. "I'm not going to shoot you," Silas said quietly. "Not today. But I'm going to make you a promise, Victor. If you come back here, if you come anywhere near this family, I will hunt you down. And what happened to Emmett Crane will look merciful compared to what I'll do to you." Victor's eyes narrowed. "Crane? Emmett Crane? Friend of yours?" "Business associate." Victor's voice was careful now. "What happened to him?" "He made the mistake of threatening someone I care about. Now he's feeding the coyotes in Miller's Canyon." The color drained from Victor's face.
He looked at Silas with new eyes, reassessing. You killed Crane. I did. He had friends, powerful friends. Then send them my way. I'll bury them next to him. Silence stretched between them. Victor's jaw worked, his hands clenching and unclenching at his sides. Silas could see the calculations happening behind his eyes, the risk assessment. Finally, Victor stepped back. This isn't over, he said. You hear me? This isn't over. He swung up onto his horse and yanked the reins, turning the animal toward the road. But before he rode away, he looked back at Emmeline. You made your choice, Emma. Now you'll live with it. Then he was gone, disappearing into the trees, the sound of hoofbeats fading into the distance. Emmeline's legs gave out.
Silas caught her before she hit the ground, wrapping his arms around her, holding her up. She was shaking, her whole body trembling with delayed fear. It's okay, he said. He's gone. You're safe. He'll come back. He always comes back. Then I'll be here. She looked up at him, her face tear-stained, her eyes searching his. Why are you doing this? Why are you risking everything for us? Silas didn't have words for it. The way the empty place inside him had started to fill. The way her children's laughter made the house feel alive again. The way she looked at him like he was someone worth believing in. So he didn't use words. He just held her tighter and let his actions speak. The children poured out of the house a moment later. Josie reached them first, throwing her arms around her mother. Is he gone? Is he really gone? For now, Emmeline said. For now, baby. Violet was crying. Rose had retreated back into her silence, her face blank and distant.
Sam stood apart, his hands balled into fists, his eyes fixed on the road where Victor had disappeared. I should have done something, he said. I should have. You did exactly right, Silas cut in. You stayed where I told you. You protected your sisters. I hid, like a coward. You obeyed orders. That's not cowardice. That's discipline. Silas put a hand on the boy's shoulder. Your time will come, Sam. But not today. Today wasn't your fight. Sam looked up at him, searching for something in his face. Whatever he found seemed to help. The tension in his shoulders eased slightly. Will he come back? Probably. What do we do? We prepare. We get ready. And when he comes, we face him together. Sam nodded slowly. Together. They went inside. The house felt different now, the warmth tinged with something sharper. Fear had entered, and it would take time to push it out again. Emmeline sat at the kitchen table while Josie made tea. Her hands were still shaking. I'm sorry, she said to Silas. I brought this to your door. I never should have. Stop. His voice was firm but gentle. You did what you had to do to protect your children. There's no shame in that. But Victor. Victor is one man. A mean man, but just one. He's not an army. He's not invincible. You don't know him like I do. He doesn't give up. He doesn't forgive. He'll find a way to hurt us, to hurt you. Silas sat down across from her. Let me tell you something about myself, something I haven't told anyone. Emmeline looked at him, waiting. Before I came out here, before I built this ranch, I was a soldier, fought in the war, saw things no man should have to see, did things no man should have to do. He paused, the memories flickering behind his eyes. When it was over, I thought I was done with violence. Thought I could leave it behind, build a quiet life. Then Eleanor died. Hannah died, and I stopped caring about anything at all. He reached across the table and took her hand. But you and your children changed that. You woke something up in me, something I thought was dead. His grip tightened. I'm not the same broken man I was a week ago. I've got something to fight for now, and God help anyone who tries to take it from me.
Emmeline's eyes filled with tears. Silas.
I can't promise you it'll be easy. I can't promise Victor won't cause trouble. But I can promise you this. As long as I'm breathing, no one will hurt you or your children. That's not a vow I make lightly. That's a vow I'll keep until I'm in the ground.
She stood abruptly and walked around the table. Before he could react, she wrapped her arms around him and buried her face in his shoulder. Silas hesitated for just a moment. Then his arms came up around her, pulling her close. They stayed that way for a long time. The next morning, Silas rode into town again. This time, he had a purpose beyond just reporting to the sheriff. He went to the church first, where Pastor Reynolds was sweeping the front steps. "Silas Thornton," the pastor stopped sweeping, surprised. "I haven't seen you since Eleanor's funeral, I know. What brings you here?" Silas told him about Emmeline, about the children, about Victor Holloway and the threat he posed. Reynolds listened without interrupting. When Silas finished, the pastor set aside his broom. "What do you need?" "I need people to know. If a big man with red hair comes asking questions about a woman and 5 children, I need them to tell him nothing. And I need them to tell me. You want the town to protect them. I want the town to have a chance to do the right thing." Reynolds studied him for a long moment. "You've changed, Silas. I can see it in your eyes. Something's different." "Something is. This woman, these children, they mean something to you." "More than I can say." The pastor smiled. "Then I'll spread the word. Coldwater Springs takes care of its own. If this Victor Holloway comes looking for trouble, he'll find a whole town standing against him." "Thank you, Pastor." "Thank God, Silas. He's the one who sent that family to your door." Silas wasn't sure he believed that, but he nodded anyway. He made the same rounds at the general store, the saloon, the blacksmith. Everywhere he went, he told the same story. Everywhere he went, he got the same response. Support, solidarity, a community rallying around one of its own. By the time he headed back to the ranch, Silas felt something he hadn't felt in years. Hope. Real, solid hope. Emmeline was on the porch when he rode up. She'd been watching for him, he realized. Waiting. "How did it go?"
"Better than I expected." He dismounted and walked toward her. "The whole town knows. If Victor shows his face, he'll have more than just me to deal with." Emmeline's shoulders sagged with relief.
"They do that? For strangers?"
"You're not strangers. Not anymore. You're part of this community now. Part of this place." He climbed the porch steps and stood beside her. "Part of my life." She turned to face him. The afternoon sun caught her face, highlighting the fading bruises, the lines of exhaustion, the strength beneath it all. "I don't know how to repay you," she said, "for everything you've done." "I don't want repayment." "Then what do you want?" The question hung in the air between them. Silas thought about all the things he could say, all the careful, safe answers. Instead, he told the truth. "I want you to stay, not just through the winter, not just until you're back on your feet." He took a breath. "I want you to stay forever. You and the children. I want this to be your home." Emmeline's breath caught.
Silas.
I know it's too soon. I know we barely know each other. But I haven't felt this way since Eleanor. I haven't wanted anything this much in 5 years. He reached out and touched her face, gentle as a whisper. I'm not asking you to love me. I'm not asking for anything you're not ready to give. I'm just asking you to stay, to give this a chance, to let me be part of your family. Tears spilled down her cheeks, but she was smiling. You're already part of our family, she said. You have been since the moment you ran through that snow to save my daughter. She rose up on her toes and kissed him. It was soft and brief and tasted like salt from her tears. But it was real. It was a beginning. When she pulled back, Silas was smiling too. Is that a yes? He asked. That's a yes. The front door burst open and Violet tumbled out. Are you getting married? She demanded. Josie said you were getting married. Are you? Emmeline laughed, wiping her eyes. We're not. We haven't. Not yet, Silas said. But maybe someday. If your mama will have me.
She will,
Violet said with absolute confidence.
She likes you. I can tell because she smiles when you're around. She didn't smile before. Not for a long time.
Emmeline pulled her daughter close. When did you get so observant?
I've always been observant. You just didn't notice.
Silas laughed. It felt strange, unfamiliar. He couldn't remember the last time he'd laughed like that. The other children appeared in the doorway. Josie with Lily on her hip. Sam with his arms crossed, trying to look unaffected. Rose, silent as always, watching everything with those deep, solemn eyes.
Is it true? Josie asked. Are we staying?
Emmeline looked at Silas. He nodded.
We're staying, she said. This is our home now.
Violet cheered. Josie smiled, relief flooding her face. Sam's arms uncrossed, and for just a moment, he looked like the child he was supposed to be. And Rose, silent Rose, did something she hadn't done since her father died. She spoke.
Home.
Her voice was rusty, uncertain, like a door that hadn't been opened in years.
This is home.
Everyone froze. Emmeline's hand flew to her mouth.
Rose? Baby?
Rose looked up at her mother, then at Silas. A tiny smile flickered across her face.
I like it here, she said. The man with the horses is kind. He makes Mama happy.
Emmeline dropped to her knees and pulled Rose into her arms, sobbing.
My baby, my sweet baby girl. You're talking. I had things to say.
Rose's voice was matter-of-fact.
I was just waiting for the right time.
Silas felt his eyes burning. He blinked hard, looking away. Josie appeared at his side. She didn't say anything, just slipped her hand into his and squeezed.
Thank you, she whispered, for giving her a reason to come back.
Silas squeezed back. Thank you for finding me. They stood together on the porch, this patchwork family, watching the sun sink toward the mountains. The danger wasn't over. Victor was still out there. Crane's network might still come looking for revenge. But in this moment, none of that mattered. What mattered was the warmth of Josie's hand in his, the sound of Emmeline crying happy tears. The miracle of Rose's voice returned after 2 years of silence. What mattered was home. And for the first time in 5 years, Silas Thornton knew exactly where that was. 2 weeks passed without sign of Victor. Silas knew better than to think he'd given up. Men like Victor Holloway didn't walk away from what they considered theirs. He was planning something, gathering resources, waiting for the right moment. So Silas prepared. He taught Sam to shoot properly, not just aim, but breathe, steady, squeeze. The boy had a natural talent for it. his eye true, his hand steady. Within a week, he could hit a target at 50 yards.
"You're a good teacher,"
Sam said one afternoon, lowering the rifle. "You're a good student."
"My pa tried to teach me, but he didn't have the patience.
He got frustrated when I missed.
Missing's how you learn. Everyone misses at first. Sam was quiet for a moment.
Do you think my pa would be proud of me? If he could see me now?"
Silas looked at the boy, at the man he was becoming. "I think he'd be prouder than words could say." Sam's face flushed, but he didn't look away.
"Silas?"
"Yeah?"
"I'm glad we found you. I'm glad Josie knocked on your door that day."
"Me too, son. Me too." The word slipped out before Silas could stop it. "Son." He saw Sam's eyes widen, saw the emotion flash across his face. Neither of them mentioned it, but something shifted between them. Something settled into place. Emmeline grew stronger every day. The bruises faded. The stiffness left her movements. She took over more of the household work, insisting on earning her keep, though Silas told her repeatedly that she didn't owe him anything.
"I need to do this,"
she said one morning, kneading bread at the kitchen table.
"I need to feel useful."
"To feel like I'm contributing. You contribute just by being here."
"That's sweet, but it's not enough. Not for me."
She looked up at him, flour dusting her cheek.
"I spent 2 years being told I was helpless, that I couldn't survive without a man to take care of me. I need to prove that was a lie. Not to you, to myself."
Silas understood. He'd felt the same way after the war, after Eleanor died. The need to do something, anything, to prove you were still alive. "Then bake your bread," he said. "Fix the curtains. Feed the chickens. Do whatever you need to do. Just know that you've already proved yourself. The moment you walked out of that house with 5 children and nothing but the clothes on your back, you proved you were stronger than Victor ever imagined." Emmeline's eyes glistened. She reached out and touched his face, leaving a flowery handprint on his cheek.
"How did I find you?"
she whispered. "I think the better question is, how did Josie find me?"
That girl's got instincts like a bloodhound.
Emmeline laughed, the sound warm and bright.
"She does, doesn't she? Always has. Even as a baby she knew who to trust and who to avoid. Thomas used to say she could see into people's souls."
"She saw into mine."
"And what did she find?"
Silas thought about it. "Someone who needed saving as much as you did, just in a different way." The children had settled into their new life, with the resilience only children possessed. Violet spent hours with Snowball the cat, carrying her around the ranch like a furry orange baby. Rose talked more each day, her voice growing stronger, her words more frequent. She'd started telling stories again, fantastical tales about horses that could fly, and girls who turned into birds. "Where does she get these ideas?" Silas asked one evening, listening to Rose spin a tale about a princess who lived in a tree.
"From her father," Emmeline said softly. "Thomas was a dreamer.
He used to make up stories for the children every night. Rose got his imagination. And Sam got his stubbornness? Sam got my stubbornness. Thomas was gentle, patient. He never raised his voice in his life." She paused. "Victor hated that about him. Said it made him weak. Sounds like Victor doesn't know the difference between strength and cruelty. He doesn't. He never did." Josie had become Silas's shadow when it came to the horses. She had a gift with them, a calm authority that made even the most skittish mare settle. He'd started teaching her to ride properly, and she took to it like she'd been born in a saddle. "I'm going to have my own horse someday," she announced one afternoon. "A black one, with a white star on his forehead." "That's very specific." "I've been dreaming about him since I was little. I know exactly what he looks like." "Then we'll find him, when the time is right." Josie smiled,
and for just a moment, she looked her age.
Not a caretaker, not a second mother, just a 12-year-old girl with dreams. Baby Lily had taken her first steps the previous week, wobbling across the floor towards Silas with her arms outstretched. He'd caught her just before she fell, and she'd looked up at him with those big eyes and said her first word.
Da.
The room had gone silent. Emmeline's face had crumpled. Silas had felt something break open inside him, something he'd kept locked away since Hannah died.
She doesn't know what she's saying, Josie said quickly. She's just making sounds.
I know, Silas said. But he held Lily a little tighter anyway. It was a good life, better than Silas had ever expected to have again. But the shadow of Victor hung over everything, a threat they couldn't escape, a storm they knew was coming. It came on a Sunday. They'd gone to church that morning, all of them together. It was Emmeline's idea. She wanted to thank the community that had rallied around them, wanted to show her children what it meant to be part of something larger than themselves. Pastor Reynolds had welcomed them warmly. The other families had nodded and smiled, offered handshakes and words of kindness. Silas had felt almost comfortable, standing in that little church with Emmeline beside him and 5 children fidgeting in the pew. Almost. The trouble started on the ride home. They'd taken the wagon, all 7 of them piled in together. Silas drove while Emmeline sat beside him, Lily on her lap. The older children were in the back, Josie keeping order while Sam pretended not to enjoy the bumpy ride. They were halfway home when Silas saw the smoke. His heart stopped. Black smoke, rising thick and heavy above the trees, coming from the direction of the ranch.
Silas?
Emmeline's voice was sharp with fear.
Is that?
Stay in the wagon. He handed her the reins and jumped down. Get to town. Tell the sheriff.
I'm not leaving you.
Emmeline, take the children and go. No. Her voice was steel. We face this together. You said that. Together. He wanted to argue, wanted to throw her and the children to safety and handle this alone. But the look in her eyes stopped him. Fine, but stay behind me, all of you. He climbed back into the wagon and urged the horses forward. They rounded the last bend in the road, and the ranch came into view. The barn was burning. Flames licked up the walls, devouring the dry wood. Smoke poured into the sky. And standing in front of the house, silhouetted against the fire, were 4 men. Victor was in the center. He'd brought friends this time. Big men, rough men, the kind who worked for money and didn't ask questions. Stay here. Silas's voice was quiet, controlled. No matter what happens, stay in this wagon. He jumped down and walked toward the burning barn. His rifle was in his hands, but he didn't raise it. Not yet. Victor! His voice carried across the yard.
Burning a man's barn. That how you do things?
Victor stepped forward. That smile was back. The one that wasn't really a smile. Just wanted to get your attention, Thornton. Make sure you understood I was serious. I understood the first time. Did you? Because you're still standing between me and what's mine. Nothing here is yours. Victor's smile widened. That's where you're wrong. See, I've done some checking. Talked to some people. Turns out Emmett Crane had a lot of friends. Friends who aren't too happy about what happened to him. He gestured to the men beside him. They're willing to help me with my little family problem, in exchange for certain considerations. Silas's blood ran cold. Crane's network. They'd found him after all. So here's how this is going to work, Victor continued. You're going to put down that rifle. You're going to step aside. And you're going to let me take Emmeline and the children. Do that, and maybe I let you live. Maybe.
And if I don't?
Then my friends here burn your house down with you inside it, and we take them anyway. Silas looked at the 4 men. They were armed, confident, the kind of men who'd done this before, He was one man with 6 rounds. The math wasn't good. But he wasn't alone.
Mama!
Josie's voice rang out from the wagon. She was standing up, pointing toward the road.
Someone's coming!
Silas turned. A cloud of dust was rising in the distance. Horses. A lot of them. Victor's smile flickered. What is this? The riders appeared through the trees. Sheriff Barkley in front, his badge catching the light. Behind him, a dozen men from town. The blacksmith, the general store owner, Pastor Reynolds, farmers and ranchers, carrying rifles and shotguns, their faces grim. They fanned out across the yard, surrounding Victor and his men. Victor Holloway, Barkley's voice was hard. You're under arrest for arson, assault, and attempted kidnapping. Victor's face twisted.
You can't do this. This is a family matter. It stopped being a family matter when you set fire to a man's barn, when you threatened his family. Barkley dismounted, his hand resting on his gun. Drop your weapons, all of you. Victor's men looked at each other. The odds had changed. 12 against 4 wasn't a fight. It was a massacre. Don't be stupid, one of them muttered to Victor. It ain't worth dying over. Shut up. I mean it. We didn't sign on for this. One by one, Victor's men dropped their weapons. They stepped back, hands raised, suddenly eager to separate themselves from the man who'd led them here. Victor stood alone. This isn't over, he snarled. You hear me, Emmeline? This isn't... Silas hit him. The punch came out of nowhere, 5 years of grief and rage and helplessness behind it. Victor's head snapped back. He staggered, blood spraying from his lip. Silas grabbed him by the collar and pulled him close.
Listen to me, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. This is over. It ends here, today. If you ever come near Emmeline again, if you even say her name, I will hunt you down and I will end you. Not quick, not clean. I'll make sure you have time to think about every wrong thing you ever did, every woman you hurt, every child you terrorized. And then I'll bury you so deep they'll never find the pieces. Victor's eyes were wide. For the first time since Silas had known him, he saw fear there. Do you understand me? Victor nodded, unable to speak. Say it. I understand. Silas released him. Victor stumbled backward, his hand pressed to his bleeding mouth. Sheriff Barkley stepped forward with handcuffs. Victor Holloway, you're coming with me. Judge Miller's going to have some questions for you. They led Victor away. His men went with them, cuffed and silent, suddenly very interested in cooperating with the law. The townspeople remained, a wall of support around the burning barn. The blacksmith organized a bucket brigade, and within an hour the fire was out. The barn was damaged, half of it gone, but the house was untouched. The horses were safe, having been turned out to pasture that morning. We'll help you rebuild, Pastor Reynolds said. The whole town will pitch in. You're one of us now, Silas. All of you are. Silas nodded, unable to speak. His throat was too tight with emotion. Emmeline came to stand beside him. She slipped her hand into his and squeezed. It's over, she said. It's really over. Looks that way. How did they know? The townspeople. How did they know to come? Josie! It was Sam's voice, coming from behind them. He was grinning, the first real grin Silas had seen from him. She saw the smoke before anyone else. Made me ride to town as fast as I could while you were driving toward the ranch. Silas turned to look at his almost daughter. She was standing by the wagon, Violet clinging to her side, Rose pressed against her other hip. You did that? Josie shrugged, trying to look casual. Seemed like the smart thing to do.
You always say we should be prepared. I also said to stay in the wagon. You said no matter what happens. Well, something happened. I improvised. Silas felt a laugh bubbling up inside him. It broke free, surprising him, echoing across the yard. You improvised, he repeated. You probably saved all our lives, and you call it improvising. Josie's casual mask cracked. Tears spilled down her cheeks. I was so scared, she admitted. I saw the smoke and I thought we were going to lose everything again. I couldn't let that happen. I couldn't. Silas crossed to her and pulled her into his arms. She buried her face in his chest and sobbed. You did good, he said. You did so good, Josie. I'm proud of you. Really? Really. You're the bravest person I know. She held on to him like she'd never let go. And Silas realized, with a clarity that took his breath away, that this was what he'd been missing. This was what Eleanor had tried to give him all those years ago, what Hannah had embodied before she was taken too soon. Family. Connection. Love. Not just the idea of it, the real, messy, terrifying, beautiful thing. The townspeople stayed until sunset, helping clear debris, assessing damage, making plans for reconstruction. They refused payment, refused even thanks. This is what neighbors do, the blacksmith said. You'd do the same for any of us. And Silas realized he would, without hesitation. This community had become his family as surely as Emmeline and the children had. When the last of them rode away, the ranch fell quiet. The children were exhausted, curling up by the fire, their faces slack with sleep. Emmeline sat at the kitchen table, nursing a cup of tea, her eyes distant. Silas sat down across from her. You all right? I don't know. She wrapped her hands around the cup like she was drawing warmth from it. I've been running from Victor for so long, looking over my shoulder, jumping at shadows. And now, she trailed off. Now it's over. Is it? Really? The sheriff has him. The judge will deal with him. And even if by some miracle he gets out, he knows what's waiting for him if he comes back here. Emmeline looked at him. You scared him. I've never seen Victor scared before. Good. He should be scared. What did you say to him when you grabbed him? Silas was quiet for a moment. I told him the truth, that if he ever came near you again, I'd make him regret it in ways he couldn't imagine. Would you? Really? Without hesitation. Emmeline set down her tea. She stood and walked around the table, lowering herself into his lap. It was forward, unexpected. Silas felt his heart rate spike. What are you doing? Something I've wanted to do for days. She cupped his face in her hands. Silas Thornton, you are the best man I have ever known. You took in strangers. You protected us with your life. You gave my children a home and my daughter her voice back. And you stood up to Victor like no one ever has. Anyone would have. No, they wouldn't. Don't you understand? My own family turned their backs on me when Thomas died. Said I should do what Victor wanted, that it was the sensible thing, the safe thing. Her eyes blazed. You barely knew us, and you fought for us. You killed for us. You were willing to die for us. Emmeline, let me finish. She took a breath. I was going to wait. Give us time. Make sure this was real. But life is too short for waiting. I know what I feel, and I know what I want. What do you want? She kissed him, long and deep and full of everything she couldn't say. When she pulled back, they were both breathing hard. I want you, she said. I want this family. I want to wake up next to you every morning and fall asleep beside you every night. I want to grow old with you, Silas. I want everything." Silas felt tears burning in his eyes. "I buried my wife and daughter 5 years ago. I thought I'd never love anyone again. Thought I didn't deserve to. And now? Now I know I was wrong. About all of it." He pulled her closer. "You walked into my life like a miracle, Emmeline. You and those 5 beautiful children. And I will spend the rest of my days thanking God for that blizzard, for Josie's bravery, for whatever twist of fate brought you to my door."
Is that a yes?
That's a yes. To everything. To all of it. Emmeline laughed, tears streaming down her face.
We're really doing this?
"We're really doing this." She kissed him again, and Silas felt the last of his walls crumble. The fortress he'd built around his heart, the one that had kept everyone out for 5 years, collapsed into dust. In its place was something new, something stronger, a foundation for the future. The children woke one by one over the next hour. Josie first, then Sam, then Violet dragging a sleepy Rose behind her. Baby Lily stirred last, reaching for her mother with chubby hands.
We have something to tell you,
Emmeline said, gathering them close.
all of you.
You're getting married, Violet said immediately. I knew it.
How did you?
You're both crying and smiling at the same time. That's what people do when they're in love. I read about it in a book.
Silas laughed. You read too much.
Is there such a thing?
Apparently not. Sam crossed his arms, but he was smiling.
So does this mean we're staying? For real?
For real, Silas said. This is your home now. Officially. Permanently.
And you'll be our...
Sam hesitated.
What do we call you?
Silas looked at him. At all of them. These children who had stumbled out of a blizzard and into his heart. You can call me whatever feels right, he said. I'm not trying to replace your father. No one could. But I'll be here for you. I'll protect you. I'll love you. Whatever name you want to put on that, it's fine by me. Rose stepped forward. Her voice was still soft, still hesitant, but growing stronger every day.
Can I call you Papa?
Silas's throat closed up. He nodded, unable to speak.
Me too,
Violet said.
I want to call you Papa too. And me,
Josie added quietly. Sam was the last. He stood apart, his face unreadable. Then he stepped forward and extended his hand. I'm not ready for that, he said. Not yet. But I'd be proud to call you family. Silas shook his hand. That's more than enough. They stayed up late that night, talking and laughing and planning. The wedding would be in spring, when the snow melted and the wildflowers bloomed. Pastor Reynolds would officiate. The whole town would come.
Can I be in the wedding?
Violet asked.
Can I throw flowers?
You can throw all the flowers you want.
Can I wear a pretty dress?
The prettiest dress we can find.
Can Snowball come?
Absolutely not. But the cat stays home. Final answer. Violet pouted, but only for a moment. There was too much joy in the room for pouting. When the children finally fell asleep, scattered across the floor like a litter of puppies, Silas and Emmeline sat together by the dying fire.
I never thought this would happen,
Emmeline said softly.
Even when we ran, even when I was dreaming of California, I never imagined anything like this.
What did you imagine?
Survival. Work. Maybe a small room somewhere. Enough food to keep the children fed.
She shook her head.
Not love. Not a home. Not a man who looks at me the way you do.
How do I look at you?
Like I'm something precious, something worth protecting.
Her voice trembled.
Thomas used to look at me that way. I thought I'd never see it again.
Silas took her hand.
I'll look at you that way every day for the rest of our lives. That's a promise.
Emmeline leaned her head against his shoulder.
I believe you,
she said. And for the first time in longer than she could remember, she meant it. Spring came slowly to Coldwater Springs. The snow melted in patches at first, revealing brown grass and frozen mud. Then the sun grew stronger, the days longer, and the land began to wake from its winter sleep. Green shoots pushed through the earth. Birds returned, filling the air with song. The creek behind the ranch swelled with snowmelt, rushing and tumbling over stones. And on the first truly warm day of April, Silas Thornton married Emmeline Holloway. The whole town came. They packed into the little church until there was standing room only, then spilled out onto the steps and into the yard. Pastor Reynolds had never performed a ceremony for so many witnesses.
Seems like everyone wanted to see this happen, he said to Silas before the service began.
You've touched a lot of lives these past few months. They touched mine first. Silas stood at the front of the church in his best suit, the one he'd worn to Eleanor's funeral, and hadn't touched since. It felt different now. The same fabric, the same cut, but the man wearing it had changed. Sam stood beside him as best man. The boy had grown 2 inches since winter, his shoulders filling out, his face losing its childish softness. He'd practiced his role for weeks, terrified of dropping the ring or forgetting his cue. You nervous? Sam asked. Terrified. Me too, Sam grinned. But the good kind of terrified, you know? Silas did know. It was the terror of standing on the edge of something wonderful, knowing that everything was about to change. The music started. A woman from town played the old piano in the corner, a hymn that Eleanor had loved. Silas felt his throat tighten.
The doors at the back of the church opened. Violet came first, scattering flower petals with solemn concentration. She wore a blue dress that Emmeline had sewn from fabric Silas had bought in town, and her hair was done up in ribbons. She looked like a tiny angel, if angels had perpetually dirty knees and a tendency to talk too much. Rose followed, carrying a small basket of flowers. She was humming to herself, a tune she'd made up, something about birds and magic horses. Her voice had grown stronger each day, the silence of grief finally giving way to the music that had always been inside her. Josie came next, holding Lily on her hip. The baby wore a white dress and a bonnet, and she was chewing on her fist with great enthusiasm. Josie walked slowly, carefully, her eyes fixed on Silas. She smiled, and he smiled back. Then Emmeline appeared. She wore a simple white dress, nothing fancy, nothing expensive. But when Silas saw her standing in the doorway, with sunlight streaming around her, she was the most beautiful thing he'd ever seen. Her hair was down, flowing over her shoulders, the way he liked it. Her face was calm, radiant, all the fear and exhaustion of the past months washed away. She carried a bouquet of wildflowers that Violet had picked that morning, already wilting a little in the warmth. She walked toward him slowly, her eyes never leaving his face. When she reached the front of the church, she took his hand. Her fingers were trembling. "Hi," she whispered. "Hi yourself." "I'm nervous." "Me too." "Is that normal?" "I think it means we're doing something important." Pastor Reynolds cleared his throat. "If you two are done whispering, we have a wedding to perform." Laughter rippled through the church. Silas and Emmeline turned to face the pastor, their hands still clasped. The ceremony was simple, traditional. The words had been spoken thousands of times by thousands of couples, but they felt new to Silas, fresh, like he was hearing them for the first time.
Do you, Silas Thornton, take this woman to be your lawfully wedded wife, to have and to hold from this day forward, for better, for worse, for richer, for poorer, in sickness and in health, to love and to cherish, until death do you part? Silas looked at Emmeline, at the woman who had stumbled into his life in a blizzard and brought him back from the dead. I do.
And do you, Emmeline Holloway, take this man to be your lawfully wedded husband, to have and to hold from this day forward, for better, for worse, for richer, for poorer, in sickness and in health, to love and to cherish, until death do you part?
Emmeline's eyes were shining with tears.
I do.
Then by the power vested in me by the territory of Wyoming and by Almighty God, I pronounce you husband and wife. Pastor Reynolds smiled. You may kiss the bride. Silas pulled Emmeline close and kissed her. The church erupted in cheers and applause. Violet jumped up and down, scattering the rest of her flowers. Rose laughed out loud, a sound that still surprised everyone who heard it. Sam clapped Silas on the back, grinning from ear to ear. And Lily, not understanding what was happening but sensing the joy around her, let out a happy shriek and threw her bonnet into the air. They walked out of the church hand in hand into the spring sunshine. The townspeople gathered around them, offering congratulations and well wishes. The blacksmith presented them with a set of iron candle holders he'd forged himself. Martha, from the general store, gave them a quilt she'd been making all winter. Pastor Reynolds pressed a Bible into Emmeline's hands, the same one she'd admired in his study weeks ago. "Welcome to Coldwater Springs," he said, officially. The reception was held in the yard of the ranch. Tables had been set up, loaded with food that the town's women had been preparing for days. There was music from a fiddle and guitar, and dancing on the hard-packed earth where the barn used to stand. The new barn was already half built. The whole town had pitched in to raise it, working weekends and evenings, refusing any payment. It would be finished by summer, bigger and stronger than the original. "This is too much," Emmeline said, looking around at the celebration. "All these people, all this food, we can't possibly repay them." "You don't have to," Silas said. "That's not how it works." "Then how does it work?" "You accept it. You say thank you, and someday, when someone else needs help, you do the same for them." Emmeline shook her head in wonder. "I've never lived in a place like this, where people just help each other." "Neither had I. Not until you came along." Silas squeezed her hand. "You changed everything, Emma. Not just for me. For this whole town. They see what we built, what we survived, and it reminds them what matters. Family. Community. Taking care of each other. We didn't do anything special. We just kept going. Sometimes that's the most special thing of all." The dancing went late into the evening. Silas danced with Emmeline, with Josie, with Violet, who insisted on standing on his boots while he moved. He even danced with Rose, who was too shy to lead, but happy to be spun in circles until she was dizzy and laughing. Sam didn't dance. He stood at the edge of the crowd, watching with a small smile on his face. Silas walked over to him. "You could ask one of the girls from town," he said. "That Miller girl keeps looking at you." Sam's face turned red. "I don't know how to dance." "Neither do I. Never stopped me." "That's different. You're old." "Thanks for that." Sam laughed. "You know what I mean. You don't have to worry about looking stupid." "Everyone looks stupid when they're learning something new. The trick is not caring." Silas put a hand on the boy's shoulder. "But if you're not ready, that's fine too. There's no rush." "I know." Sam was quiet for a moment. "Silas?"
Yeah? I've been thinking about what to call you. Silas's heart skipped. And? I'm still not ready for Pa or Papa. That was my father's name, and He swallowed. I'm not ready to give it to someone else. I understand. I told you, there's no pressure. But I was thinking maybe I could call you Dad. It's different enough, and it feels right, if that's okay with you. Silas felt tears burning in his eyes. He blinked them back. That's more than okay, he said. That's perfect. Sam nodded, his own eyes suspiciously bright. Good. That's good. They stood together in comfortable silence, watching the celebration unfold around them. Father and son, not by blood, but by choice. And that, Silas thought, was the strongest bond of all.
As the night wore on and the guests began to leave, Emmeline gathered her children for bed. They were exhausted, running on pure excitement and sugar from the wedding cake. Violet fell asleep in Silas's arms before he could get her to her room. Rose wandered in a daze, murmuring about dancing horses. Lily was already out cold, her small body limp with sleep. Only Josie remained alert, helping her mother with the younger ones, making sure everyone was tucked in and settled.
Thank you, Emmeline said to her oldest daughter, for everything today, for helping with the little ones, for being so strong. I'm always strong, Josie said. Then, softer, but it's nice not to have to be. Not anymore. What do you mean? Before, it was just us, you and me, trying to keep everyone alive, trying to stay one step ahead of Uncle Victor. I had to be strong because there wasn't anyone else. She looked toward the door, where Silas was putting away the last of the chairs.
But now there's him, and the whole town, and I can just be me, just Josie, not the second mother, not the backup, just a girl.
Emmeline pulled her into a hug. You were never just a backup. You were my partner, my rock. I couldn't have survived without you. I know, but I'm glad I don't have to be that anymore. Josie pulled back, smiling. I'm glad we found him, Mama. I'm glad I knocked on his door that day. Me too, baby. Me too. When the children were asleep, Silas and Emmeline sat together on the porch, watching the stars come out. The night was cool but pleasant, the air carrying the scent of spring blossoms. Mrs. Thornton, Silas said, testing the name, has a nice ring to it. I think so too. Emmeline leaned her head against his shoulder. It's strange. I was so scared to get married again. After Thomas, I thought I'd never want to. But with you... With me? With you, it feels like coming home. Like I was always supposed to end up here, with you. Maybe you were. Do you believe in fate? In things happening for a reason? Silas thought about it. About the blizzard. About the children appearing at his fence. About all the choices, big and small, that had led them to this moment. I don't know about fate, he said, but I believe that sometimes life gives you exactly what you need, exactly when you need it. And you can either accept it or let it pass you by. I'm glad you accepted us. I'm glad you let me. They sat in silence for a while, content just to be together. The stars wheeled overhead, ancient and eternal, indifferent to the small human dramas playing out beneath them. But to Silas, those small dramas were everything. Can I tell you something? Emmeline asked. Anything. When Victor had me in that canyon, when I thought I was going to die, I wasn't scared for myself. I was scared for my children, for what would happen to them without me. She paused.
But I was also scared that I'd never see you again. This man I'd known for less than a day.
I was scared I'd never get to know you.
You know me now.
I do, and I'm not scared anymore.
Silas turned to face her. Emma, I need to tell you something. About Eleanor. About Hannah.
You don't have to.
I want to. He took a breath. When they died, I thought my life was over. I thought I'd never feel anything again. I closed myself off from the world because it was easier than facing the pain.
That's understandable.
Maybe, but it was also wrong. Eleanor wouldn't have wanted that. She would have wanted me to keep living, to find happiness again. He touched Emmeline's face. I think she sent you to me. I know that sounds crazy, but I believe it. She saw me suffering, and she sent you and your children to bring me back. Emmeline's eyes filled with tears.
That doesn't sound crazy at all.
I love you, Emma. Not as a replacement for Eleanor, not as a way to fill the emptiness. I love you for who you are, for your strength and your kindness, and the way you look at your children like they're the most precious things in the world. They are the most precious things in the world. I know, and now they're my precious things too. Our precious things. He kissed her forehead. We're going to have a good life, Emma. All of us. I promise.
I believe you, she whispered. I finally believe.
The months that followed were the happiest of Silas's life. Summer came, hot and golden. The new barn was finished, better than the original. The ranch flourished under the combined care of the whole family. Silas taught Sam everything he knew about horses and cattle and land. Emmeline turned the house into a home, with curtains in the windows and flowers in every room. Josie got her black horse with the white star, found at an auction in town, exactly as she'd dreamed. Violet started school in the fall, protesting loudly that she already knew everything and didn't need more education. She came home the first day with 3 new friends and a grudging admission that maybe school wasn't so bad. Rose continued to blossom. She told stories now, not just to herself, but to anyone who would listen. The townspeople loved her, this small girl with a big imagination who spun tales about cowboys and princesses and magic. Baby Lily took her first real steps across the kitchen floor, straight into Silas's waiting arms. She called him Dada without hesitation, and every time she said it, his heart grew a little bigger. One evening in late autumn, as the leaves turned gold and red, Sheriff Barkley rode out to the ranch. Silas met him in the yard. "Tom, everything all right?" "Better than all right. Thought you'd want to know. Victor Holloway was sentenced today. 5 years hard labor for what he did here, plus another 3 for some crimes he committed back east that caught up with him. 8 years. 8 years, and when he gets out, he's been warned. He comes anywhere near this territory, anywhere near your family, and the full weight of the law comes down on him." Silas felt something loosen in his chest, a tension he hadn't even realized he was carrying. "Thank you, Tom, for everything." "Just doing my job," the sheriff smiled. "But I'll admit, it felt good putting that man away. He hurt a lot of people. Now he'll have time to think about it." After Barkley left, Silas found Emmeline in the kitchen. He told her the news. She sat down heavily, her hand pressed to her heart.
"It's over," she said. "It's really, truly over."
"It's over."
"I've been waiting for this, dreading it, hoping for it, for so long."
Tears slipped down her cheeks.
"What do I do now? How do I live without that fear?"
"The same way you've been living, just without looking over your shoulder."
I don't know how to do that.
"Then I'll teach you." Silas knelt beside her chair and took her hands. "We'll learn together how to be happy without being scared, how to trust that good things can last, how to build a future
instead of just surviving the present. Emmeline looked at him through her tears. "You make it sound easy." "It won't be easy, but it'll be worth it." He kissed her hands. "Everything worth doing is hard. That's what makes it valuable." The winter that followed was harsh but welcome. Snow piled high around the ranch, trapping them inside for days at a time. But unlike the winter before, this one was filled with warmth. Laughter echoed through the rooms, the fire burned bright, and no one was alone. On Christmas morning, the children woke before dawn, too excited to sleep. They tumbled downstairs to find the tree Silas had cut and decorated, surrounded by presents wrapped in brown paper and tied with string. The gifts were simple, practical. A new saddle for Josie, a rifle of his own for Sam, books for Rose, who devoured them like candy, a porcelain doll for Violet, and a stuffed horse for Lily. But the best gift wasn't under the tree. "I have something for all of you," Silas said when the paper had been cleared away. "Something I've been working on." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a folded document. "This is a petition to the territorial court. If it's approved, it means I can legally adopt all 5 of you. You'll be Thorntons, officially, legally, forever." The room went silent. "You want to adopt us?" Josie's voice was barely a whisper. "I want you to be my children, in every way that matters, not just in my heart, but in the eyes of the law." He looked at each of them in turn. "Only if you want it too. This has to be your choice." Violet launched herself at him. "Yes, yes, yes, yes!" Rose followed, wrapping her arms around his waist. "Yes, Papa." Lily babbled and clapped her hands, not understanding but sensing the joy. Josie stood frozen, tears streaming down her face. "You mean it? Really?" "With all my heart." She walked forward slowly and put her arms around him, joining the pile. "Then yes, 1,000 times yes." Only Sam held back. Silas looked at him over the heads of the girls. "Sam?" The boy's face was working, emotions battling across his features. "If you adopt us, it means you're really our father. Not just in words, in law." "That's right." "And we'd have your name, Thornton." "If you want it." Sam was quiet for a long moment. Then he walked forward, his steps steady and sure. "Samuel Thornton," he said, testing it. "Sam Thornton." He looked at Silas with shining eyes. "Yeah, I like that. I like that a lot." He joined the embrace, and for a moment, the whole family held each other in the light of the Christmas tree. Emmeline watched from the doorway, tears flowing freely down her cheeks. "Thank you," she mouthed to Silas. He just smiled and held his children closer. The adoption was finalized in the spring. They gathered at the courthouse, the whole family dressed in their best. Judge Miller read the decree, making official what had been true in spirit for months. "By the authority vested in me by the territory of Wyoming, I hereby grant the petition for adoption. Josephine, Samuel, Violet, Rose, and Lily are now legally the children of Silas Thornton and Emmeline Thornton. May God bless this family." The gavel came down. The children cheered. Silas pulled Emmeline close and kissed her as the courtroom erupted in applause. Outside, the spring sun shone warm on their faces. The whole town had gathered to celebrate, the same people who had rallied around them in their darkest hour, now sharing in their joy. "We did it," Emmeline said, clutching the adoption papers like precious treasure. "We really did it." "We did." A year ago, we were running for our lives, homeless, terrified, and now we're home.
She looked up at him, this man who had saved her, who had given her children a father, who had shown her that love could be gentle instead of cruel.
I love you, Silas Thornton.
I love you too, Emmeline Thornton. The children swarmed around them, Violet demanding to be lifted up, Rose pulling at Silas's hand, Sam and Josie standing shoulder to shoulder like the young adults they were becoming. Lily squealed in Emmeline's arms, reaching for Silas with her chubby fingers. He took the baby and held her high, making her laugh. Then he gathered his whole family close, right there on the courthouse steps, in full view of everyone. "Let's go home," he said. They rode back to the ranch in the wagon, 7 people where there had once been 1. The road was familiar now, every turn memorized, every landmark known. But it felt different, fuller, richer. Because they weren't just traveling to a place, they were traveling to a life. The ranch appeared around the final bend, solid and welcoming. The new barn stood proud beside the house. Horses grazed in the pasture. Snowball the cat sat on the porch railing, watching them approach with feline indifference. Silas stopped the wagon in the yard and helped everyone down. The children scattered, released from the formality of the courthouse, racing toward the barn and the fields and all the familiar places they loved. Emmeline stood beside him, watching them go. "Happy?" he asked. "More than I ever thought possible." "Good. That's all I ever wanted. For you to be happy. For them to be safe." She turned to face him, taking both his hands. "You gave us more than safety, Silas. You gave us hope. You gave us a future. You gave us a family. You gave me the same. Then I guess we're even." "I guess we are." They walked toward the house together, hand in hand. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. The air smelled of spring flowers and fresh earth. At the door, Silas paused. He looked back at the land that had been his prison for 5 years, that had become his paradise in the space of 1 winter. "Silas," Emmeline's voice was soft. "What is it?" "I was just thinking about how different everything is now. A year ago, I was dying. Slowly, quietly, letting the grief eat me alive." He turned to her. "And then you children knocked on my door, and everything changed." "Sometimes that's how it works. One moment, one choice, and your whole life goes in a different direction." "Is that what happened to you, when you decided to run from Victor?" "That's exactly what happened. I was terrified. I had no plan, no money, no idea where we'd end up. But I knew that staying was death, and leaving was at least a chance." She squeezed his hand. "I chose the chance, and it led me to you." "Best choice you ever made." "Don't let it go to your head." He laughed, pulling her close. Too late. They went inside, into the warmth and light of home. The children's voices echoed from the back of the house. Sam's deeper tones, mixing with Josie's laughter and Violet's endless chatter. Rose was singing somewhere, a made-up song about a family that lived in a house full of love. And Lily, sitting on the kitchen floor, looked up at Silas with those big eyes and said the word that still made his heart soar every time. "Dada." He picked her up and held her close, breathing in the sweet baby smell of her hair. "That's right," he said. "Dada's home. Dada's always going to be home." Emmeline watched them, her eyes soft with love. "I never thought I'd have this again," she said. "A partner. Someone to share the load." "You don't have to share it. I'll carry it for you." "I know you would, but that's not what partners do. Partners carry it together." She moved to his side, one arm around his waist, the other reaching up to stroke Lily's hair. Equal weight, equal love, equal everything. I can live with that. Good, because you're stuck with me now. Legal and binding. Worst thing that ever happened to me. Liar. Best thing. The absolute best thing. They stood together in the kitchen of their home, their daughter in his arms, their family whole and safe around them. Outside, the sun finished its descent, and the first stars appeared in the darkening sky. Somewhere in the distance, a wolf howled. The sound that had once meant danger, loneliness, the wild emptiness of a life lived alone. Now it was just background noise. The world outside, doing what it did. Inside was what mattered. Inside was love. Silas thought about the man he'd been a year ago, the ghost haunting his own house, going through the motions of living without actually being alive. He thought about Eleanor and Hannah, the graves behind the barn, where wildflowers would bloom again in spring. He didn't hurt anymore when he thought about them. The grief was still there, would always be there, but it had changed shape, softened, become something he could hold without being cut. They would have loved this, he realized. Eleanor would have loved Emmeline, would have welcomed her like a sister. And Hannah would have adored her new siblings, especially Lily, the baby sister she never got to be. Maybe they were watching. Maybe they knew. Maybe, in some way Silas couldn't understand, they had sent this family to him. He chose to believe that. It made the world feel less random, less cruel. It made his loss feel like part of something larger, something with meaning. "What are you thinking about?" Emmeline asked. "Blessings, how sometimes they come disguised as disasters. Like a blizzard that almost kills your children?" "Like that, exactly like that." She leaned up and kissed his cheek. "You're a strange man, Silas Thornton." "You married me anyway." "I did. And I'd do it again. 1,000 times."
Only 1,000? Don't push your luck.
The children burst into the kitchen, demanding dinner, demanding attention, demanding the 100 small things that children always demand. Silas and Emmeline moved apart to handle the chaos, but their eyes kept finding each other across the room. Dinner was loud and messy and perfect. Stories were told around the table, jokes that made no sense, arguments about nothing that resolved themselves in seconds. Lily threw food. Violet talked with her mouth full. Sam and Josie debated whether a horse could outrun a train. It was everything Silas had missed, everything he'd thought he'd never have again. When the children were finally in bed, the house fell quiet. Silas and Emmeline sat together by the fire, the same fire that had burned the night those 5 children had stumbled out of a blizzard and changed his life forever. "Regrets?" Emmeline asked. "Not a single one."
Fears? Only then I'll wake up and find out this was all a dream.
"It's not a dream. It's real. I'm real. The children are real. This life is real." "I know." He pulled her closer. "I just have to remind myself sometimes. After so many years of nothing, having everything feels impossible. Get used to it, because I'm not going anywhere. None of us are." "Promise?" "Promise." They sat together until the fire burned low, until the stars wheeled overhead and the moon rose silver and full. They didn't need to talk, didn't need to fill the silence with words. They just needed to be together. That was enough. That was everything. 3 years later, Silas stood on the porch of his ranch, watching the sun rise over the mountains. The land stretched out before him, familiar and beloved, every acre holding memories. Behind him, the house was waking up. He could hear Emmeline moving in the kitchen, the clatter of pots and pans. The children's voices rose and fell. The eternal morning argument about who got to use the wash basin first. But there was a new sound this year. A baby's cry, thin and demanding. Thomas Silas Thornton, 3 months old, announcing to the world that he was awake and expected to be fed immediately. Silas smiled. Another child, another miracle, another piece of his heart walking around outside his body. He thought about everything that had brought him to this moment. The grief and the loss, the years of emptiness, the blizzard and the children and the woman who had saved him as surely as he had saved her. Life wasn't perfect. There were still hard days, still moments when the grief crept back, when the memories cut sharp and deep. Victor was still out there somewhere, serving his time, a threat that wouldn't fully disappear until he was dead and buried. But the good outweighed the bad. The joy outweighed the sorrow. And every morning, Silas woke up grateful for the life he'd been given. The door opened behind him. Emmeline stepped out, baby Thomas in her arms, her hair loose around her shoulders. "Breakfast is almost ready," she said, "if you can convince the children to stop fighting long enough to eat it." "I'll try." She came to stand beside him, leaning into his warmth. "What are you thinking about?" "The day we met. How close I came to letting you all freeze on my doorstep." "But you didn't." "No, I didn't." He put his arm around her, pulling her and their son close. "Best decision I ever made." "Better than marrying me?" "Same decision, really. That day when I ran through the snow to help your children, I was already yours. I just didn't know it yet." Emmeline smiled, that smile that still made his heart skip after 3 years of marriage. "You're a romantic, Silas Thornton." "Only for you." The door burst open and children poured out. Sam, now 12, tall and confident. Josie, 15 and beautiful, with her mother's eyes and her father's stubbornness. Violet, 10 and still talking more than anyone thought possible. Rose, 8 and dreaming bigger than ever. Lily, 4 years old and ruling the household with an iron fist. They surrounded their parents, a chaos of voices and demands and love. "Papa, Sam took my book." "I did not. She left it in the barn." "Mama, can I ride into town today?" "Dada, up, up!" Silas looked at his family, his wife, his children, his life. He thought about the man he'd been, alone in his grief, waiting to die. That man was gone. In his place stood someone new, someone stronger, someone whole. A husband, a father, a man with a future. And as the sun rose over the mountains and his family gathered around him, Silas Thornton knew one thing with absolute certainty. He had found his way home, and he would never be lost again.